Hey everyone, it's the year 1999, and welcome to the world of Dungeons & Dragons. D&D is an amazing game where anything can happen. Literally, anything. Ogres laying sieges to towns, dogfights at 30,000 feet, submarine expeditions at the bottom of the sea. But before you can get into this world, you will need to know how to play. That's why I'm here. And in a series of videos that I'm going to be making, I'm going to go over just how to play the game, the basics of it. I'm even going to have a few on how to Dungeon Master, which is basically the person running the game for everyone else. Now in this first video, we're going to be looking over how to make your character. But before you can begin even making your character, you're going to need some stuff to play the game with. First thing you're going to need is your brain. And it's going to need to have its imagination intact. It's a very big part of the game, having a brain. In fact, I think that's just a big part of living, is having a brain anyway. You're also going to need access to the gameplay information, such as the rules, and, what spells do, the different types of monsters, everything. So, if you have access to a smart device, which I'm going to recommend you getting this app called Complete Reference, and also, that's going to be a good quick reference, but it doesn't have everything in it, so you may also want to get access to the player's handbook if you can, which is going to be useful for, everything else that isn't already in Complete Reference. I know, kind of a misleading title, Complete Reference. But, it has almost everything. You're also going to need some fancy dice. Now, the dice you're going to need at least one 4-sided, one 6-sided, one 8-sided, and one 10-sided die each. You're also going to need some character sheets with pencils. Yes, pencils. You don't want to use pens because you're going to be constantly erasing things on your character sheets. And most importantly, you're going to need other people to play with. Yeah, if you don't have access to one or any of these things, you can practically find them all online, except for the brain. We haven't quite figured out how to, ship brains over Amazon and just transplant them into bodies yet, but give it a few years. So, if you want to go down into the video description, I'll be giving links to websites for dice simulators, a website that's full of gameplay info and a blank character sheet. And also you can, hook up with people online to play the game with via Google Hangouts or something. But, just be careful when you're accessing people over the internet. Don't give out personal information, stuff like that. Okay. So now to get into the character. Now, there's 12 different classes, and each one does something different. Technically, no class is better than any other, but some classes, like Wizard, are harder to play right. So, just sort of going to need to decide what you're going to want to do. If you want to be a really solid wall who has the power of God on his side, play Paladin. But if you want to be sort of a lightweight warrior of darkness, go for Rogue. And the 12 classes, then they each have subcategories on top of that. That you have to choose where you want to go with the subcategory at level 1, 2, or 3. And these are different things, like with Rogue if you want to be a thief or an assassin. But we'll get more into that later. So, now that you figured out your class, you're going to need to figure out what stats the character has, how strong or smart is he or she. This is where you're going to start using dice for the first time. And so, there are 6 of these stats. There's Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Wisdom, Intelligence, and Charisma. For these, you will need to roll a 6-sided dice 4 times, and then take note of what the sum of the highest 3 dice are. So let's say you have a 5, a 4, a 3, and a 2. The highest 3 would be the 5, the 4, and the 3. So altogether, that would be 12. And so you would mark that off to the side, and you're going to want to do that a total of 6 times. Then just make a note of it. And so you're going to use those numbers later to put one of each into one of those classes. Now, technically you're supposed to stick with the numbers that you get, but if you get something like lower than 8, feel free to re-roll, because, your character should at least have some strength and everything. Like, it shouldn't be perfect. Like, don't give yourself all 18s or something. But, you don't want a character who has, 6 4s, because that's no fun either. And so now you're going to need to decide where to put the stats. Now, you're going to want to take the highest stat and put that in the class's specialty. Now, if you're playing as a druid, a cleric, a monk, or a paladin, their specialty is wisdom, so put the highest stat there. Now, barbarians and fighters and rangers, they specialize in strength, so strength should get their highest stat. If you're a bard, a sorcerer, or a warlock, they specialize in charisma. Rogues specialize in dexterity, and wizards specialize in intelligence. Now, for the next highest stat, you're going to want to look at the class information for something called saving throws. One of these saving throw stats is what you just put the highest number in, and then the second highest number should be the other saving throw stat. The third highest should go into Constitution, or if you already put one there, put it into Wisdom. Then the next highest should go to Strength. If that's taken, go for Intelligence. Then the next one should be Dexterity, with Charisma as the backup. And then, the last one goes to whichever one is remaining. Okay, so now that you have the class and base stats settled, next up is Race. Now, I know it may seem a little counterintuitive, like, you're supposed to pick the class first. Like, realistically, if this was real life, you would be born whatever race, and then you would choose your class, but, this is a game, so we can work backwards kind of on this one, just to pick the race that fits the class best. Because each race does something different, and most of them have certain special abilities that they can give your character, and they all boost stats. And so just sort of look around to decide which one you think is going to be best for your character. Like if you're playing someone who specializes in strength, maybe play an orc because they have a boost to strength. And so now that you have a race, you can choose your background. Your background is basically, just your character's almost like profession, or like what your character does, or who your character is. Like, is your character a noble, or a sailor, or a soldier, stuff like that. And there's just a lot of them, so we can't go over all of them in this video. But each one will give you a proficiency with 2 skills. We'll go into what that means a little later. A specialty feature in-game, such as being able to contact, like, members of your faction, if you're a faction agent, or, being able to, if you're an entertainer, get a free night stay at a tavern for performing. And so they also will give you a variety of items that are related to the class, including some money. And then you will also get an ability to use a set of tools, such as artisan tools, to be able to, build something or bake something, stuff like that. Okay, now to get more into skills. So skills are basically something like acrobatics, athletics, history, and each character starts out with proficiency in certain skills, most of them starting out with proficiency in 4 of them, and that just means that your character is good at doing that thing. And so, next is going to be the features and traits section, and these come from the background and race. And so these are things like, with halflings, they have the specialty trait Lucky, where if you roll a 1, you can re-roll the die on your d20, which we'll get into next time about, like, skill checks and everything like that. And lastly are languages and proficiencies. So languages are what the character speaks, of course. When you start, all characters start with common, and then another language that's determined by the player's race. And then some backgrounds will give you additional languages that you can speak. Now, almost everyone in-game is going to speak common, so languages are mostly just for, like, let's say you want to keep something secret from someone, you would speak it in the in-game language, or on the off chance that someone doesn't speak common. And then, proficiencies are what tools, weapons, and armors, you're good with and what you can use, and they can be found either with race, class, or background. And so, yeah, that's that. Next we're going to sort of go over creating a character one step at a time. And so, the character that we're going to be starting with is a Sorcerer. And so, yeah, here's your Sorcerer. Now, as I was saying earlier, each of the classes has different class specifications that you can go into, and for Sorcerer, it's where, you're sort of drawing the magic from. There's either Wild Magic or Draconic Bloodline. I'm going to go with Draconic Bloodline for this. And since he's part dragon, you also get to choose what dragon type. I'm going to go with gold. A golden dragon. And that's going to be also associated with the damage type of fire. There's a couple different ones that are associated with like cold or acid and stuff like that. And so now to go for the stats. Now, he is very high charisma. We got lucky on this one because when I was rolling these earlier, we were able to start with a 17, so that's going to go for his charisma. Then after that, is the other saving throw for a sorcerer is Constitution. So that'll be his next highest at 16. Yeah. And so then after that, Wisdom is after Constitution. Because, we already have Constitution filled in here, and that would normally be the third. And so his next highest is a 15. Then we go for Strength, which he has another 15 for. I keep saying he, haven't even decided who this character is yet. So then after that, gonna go for some Dexterity. 13. And Intelligence. 10. So yeah, Intelligence is his lowest. And so then this circle right here, it's going to be a number. It's going to be a plus or minus based on what number this is. This is a 17, so that's going to be +3. I'm going to explain more about what these numbers and everything mean in the next video, where I go more into gameplay and everything. This one is going to be +2. +2 isn't going to be plus anything. +1, if I can get that lined up properly. Yeah, then another +2. Yeah, so I was actually able to roll pretty well on this one. Got, 2 15s, a 16, and a 17. I mean, sure, the 10 isn't great, but it also isn't bad, so. Okay, so next up, we're going to need to determine his race. Now, sorcerers, they specialize in charisma, so you're going to want a race that boosts charisma, and there are 3 options for this. There's half-elf, tiefling, and dragonborn. Now, half-elf and tiefling, they both increase charisma by 2, but dragonborn only increases it by 1. So you think that, it should be between half-elf and tiefling, but I am going to go with dragonborn on this one, simply because his charisma is already so high. And this will also give a nice boost to strength. And so, class and race, sorcerer. He's going to be a dragonborn sorcerer. And plus, this fits in well with his draconic bloodline and everything. We're just going to make you smaller so you fit there. So his strength increases by 1. Sorry, 2. It's like me. So that's now a +3, and now his charisma increases by 1. So yeah, this still remains a +3. And now for the background. The background, for all things, isn't really that important. It doesn't really change too much. Kind of like this more up here. It has some nice features that really affect, it's useful for story playing, but for who the character is, it doesn't, stat-wise, doesn't always make too much of a difference. So we're actually going to go with Sailor. Yeah. Let's get a name for this guy. How about Magus Dracoson? Yep, that's what I'm going with, Dracoson. Yep. Okay, then. And so, now we're going to get into armor class. I'll explain, again, what this does more in, later on. But since he has the draconic bloodline, he actually starts with a natural armor. And so that's going to be 13 plus his dexterity modifier, so that's going to be 14. Yeah, I'll explain more of that later. And now to get into skills. Yep, this is what I keep referencing, but... So, since he's a sailor, he's going to start off with proficiency in athletics. And he also has proficiency in perception. Because, sailors, they have to be constantly on the move, hoisting ropes and all that, and also, be on the lookout when you're at sea for any disturbances. And we get to choose two skills from Arcana, Deception, Insight, Intimidation, Persuasion, and Religion. And we're going to go with Deception and Intimidation since they're both based on Charisma, which, you know, our guy has a lot of. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the wrong one. Intimidation, if I can just find it. I'm sorry. And so, yeah. So then, after that, we're going to start going into his spells. Yep, this is, you know, the cool part. He's a sorcerer, so he gets all sorts of different spells. Now, level 1, it's actually just going to start off with a few. It's going to have, you know, two first level spells, and then he's also going to have 4 cantrips. Cantrips are effectively the level 0 spells, and we'll get into what it means to have powerful spells next time and all that, and what cantrips do and everything. So there's a long list of sorcerer spells to choose from. So for the cantrips, going to do Mage Hand, which, mind you, is a cantrip that I recommend for anyone who can learn it. It's very powerful. And he's also going to go get Poison Spray. Okay. Mending. And Blade Ward. Yeah. Now level 1 spells. Gonna go with Magic Missile, which is an offensive spell, attacking people, and then Charm Person, which is a more defensive spell that makes people be more friendly to you. Okay, now we're gonna go back up here to Inventory and Equipment. These are basically all sorts of different items that he has. Now, being a sailor, he got a bunch of different equipment items that we're not going to get into all of. It's just, you know, too much to put them all here. So we're just going to go with the sorcery equipment. Now, with these classes, you sort of get to choose what equipment you have from a couple binary options. First is crossbow or a simple weapon. And we're going to go with the simple weapon, specifically a Morning Star, because our guy has some good strength but not such good dexterity. So yeah. And the Morning Star is basically just like, you know, a big club with a spike on it. Yeah. And so, next we get to choose between an Arcane Focus and a Material Components pouch. So an Arcane Focus would be something like a wand or a magic staff that you channel your energy through. And then Material Components are basically like special ingredients that you're supposed to use when you cast a spell. This can be something like, you know, a bit of insect wing or some baking flour. Now, most DMs won't make you worry about needing those ingredients, so yeah, just go with the Arcane Focus. We're going to go specifically a wand. And so, then after that, our last item is to pick between two different packs, between Dungeoneer or Explorer. Basically, those each have some different items in them, like torches and rope. So yeah, we're just going to go with the Explorer's pack. And so yeah, now we're going to, just up here with the Explorer's pack, just, you know, get some items in there. You know, I think that one, like, you know, you're going to get a mess kit from that, some rope, all that. So now we're going to go up here. Or if we can get this, get the Morning Star. Yeah, that's basically, you know, like I said before, large club, spike on it. And so when it says damage there, that's basically the damage type. And so there, like a sword would do slashing damage, or like a fire sword would do fire damage. And so yeah, stuff like that, or like a, you know, club would do bludgeoning damage. But yeah, this just does, yeah, bludgeoning, because you know it's a club. And the thing right here, it's 1d8. It's, how much damage it does. I'll explain that, more next time, like I said. And also, a cool thing that he gets for being Dragonborn is the Dragon Breath. It's a weapon you can use once a day. So now, over here, he gets a feature called Ship's Passage, which can let him get a ride on a boat, because, he's a sailor. Or at least used to be. Yeah. So he can, get a ride on a ship if the story calls for it. Across the water and all that. And so yeah, that's pretty much his only starting weapon. He also has some magic to attack with. Like the magic missile, like I said before, and also, some of his cantrips do damage. And yeah. So now, the initiative is basically, goes down to like battle order, like who attacks first. Speed is, how fast you can move, of course. That's like how many feet you can move in one round of combat, pretty much. Gonna go up here to health. That's going to be, since he's a sorcerer, that's going to be 8 plus the Constitution modifier. It's always some number plus the Constitution number. Yeah. So that would, of course, be 10. Now we're going to go down here to languages. He, of course, speaks Common, because, everyone speaks Common. And his other language is Draconic. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's Draconic, it's not that. Yeah. So then also with his proficiencies, proficient in simple weapons, stuff like that. And so yeah, that's pretty much everything you need to know about creating the character. That's basically the basics of it all. So yeah, this is Dungeons & Dragons. I hope you'll come back next time where I go more into gameplay and combat. But until then, hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!